All right, welcome back, Powers on Sports podcast. We have finally reached the pinnacle of the college football season, the college football playoff. These coaches, teams, players have worked for 6 months now to get to this point, and we are down to 12 teams vying for a national championship in the world of college football. No better person. Playoff games start on Friday. No better person to talk playoff matchups, coaching changes, NIL, all the rest. Coach Jim Leavitt, former University of South Florida head football coach. He's the winningest coach in USF football history. He's got some history with one of the teams in this tournament, the SMU Mustangs. He knows a lot of these teams really well, inside and out, these coaches, schemes, and all. We're going to get into it all with Coach Leavitt. Merry Christmas, Coach. How you doing?
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. It's a beautiful day here in Tampa, Florida. Can't
Yep,
beat
yep.
it.
And
Yeah, how about these playoffs? It's crazy, isn't
yes.
it?
How excited? I mean, I know obviously playoff wise, if you were a coach the last couple of weeks and you heard your name called on that last day, what is just the excitement level that builds these last 8 or 9 days that's going to lead into this playoff game?
Well, there's so many emotions. It's unbelievable. Certainly, you want to get into the picture. You want to be one of the 12. And then we could have a discussion about those 12 for from here to eternity. I mean, the fairness, who should be in, who should not be in, the debates. It's not a level playing field.
Right.
And there's no absolutes in college football, and it's different in the NFL. And I believe they'll move more and more towards the NFL in the future to try to get fairness into these selections.
Do you think?
I mean, the point is this: you got 4 teams in the Big Ten that are in. You got 3 teams in the SEC. Everybody would say probably the toughest conference in America.
Right.
You got 2 teams in the ACC
ACC.
in, and then you leave Miami out, which that's for their own doing. They shouldn't be in, because they lost last 2 out of 3, and they lost to
You're
Georgia
up
Tech
21
and
nothing at Syracuse.
Syracuse.
You can't lose the game up 21 nothing at Syracuse.
No,
You don't deserve to be in.
no, but the argument, though, still to me is the SEC only having 3 teams in.
So
Somewhere along the line, you got to tell me, you leave out Alabama, South Carolina,
Ole Miss.
and Ole Miss, and Ole Miss might be the one that should be in more than the
Yes.
others.
That's what I've been arguing.
You know, and
They had the best win, coach. They dominated Georgia, and they had the least loss. I mean, they lost every game by 1 score or less, where Alabama got destroyed by Oklahoma.
right,
They got manhandled by Vanderbilt, really, if you look at the game.
right.
Vanderbilt dominated the game, and then Ole Miss crushed South Carolina. I mean,
And they lost to a good Kentucky was really good early in the year. They
yes.
almost had Georgia beat. They lost by, I guess, a point, and they were
Florida was
rolling at the
surging.
time, and
Florida
it
was
was
surging at
earlier.
the end.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how you justify that, but on the other hand, how do you take SMU out of it
Right.
when the championship game, when the way they came back? I think if SMU would have got beat bad, like it looked at halftime to Clemson, then they probably wouldn't have been in. But the way they came back, and it's a miracle that Clemson came back and won that game with the field goal.
Right.
Where does the debate go? And with the standard that they had at the time, they bring SMU in. I get it. But I want to tell you something. The commissioner of the SEC and the commissioner of the Big Ten, they could say just hell with all this and move out of the NCAA and
Have
form their own deal. And you tell me television wouldn't control the television rights on that?
Right. You're
And
right.
all they have to do is pick up Clemson, or pick up, one of those teams, and it's over.
Right.
And I believe that'll happen. I believe that the top 75 schools are going to leave the NCAA in the next 3 years and form their own conferences geographically and set it up like the NFL.
Talk about a place that I know you know a little bit, being at SMU, formerly at SMU. Just talk about what a risk they took. One, they decided to go to the ACC, not take a penny of money. They were able to finance it themselves. I mean, you know that market, that Dallas market, that university's got some cash. Just talk about the risk that kind of they took to make that leap of faith into the ACC and how it's paid off in year one.
No risk. No risk. SMU has so much money, it's unreal. And, smart move. Now, the fact that they are in the national championship picture is remarkable. And you got to give their staff, their head coach, their players a lot of credit for that. They did a great job. Nobody would have thought that they would have been able to go through the ACC and do what they did. Nobody. And, I was there coaching. We were 8-0 at one time, 16th in the country when I was there with Sonny Dykes. We had a pretty hard schedule at the end, with some tough teams. Cincinnati was very good then, and we went and played them when they were like top 10 in the country and got beat. And then we got beat down at Houston. But then we lost at the end, to Memphis and to Tulsa after we just beat Central Florida,
right.
At our place. We ended up winning 9 overall. They've done a remarkable job. Rick Hart, their AD, I know well, I think he's done a great job. It's a beautiful campus. They got a lot of money.
Sleeping giant.
Giant. Yeah. But there's no reason Central Florida can't do the same. I think in their league,
right?
With Scott Frost, I'm excited about Scott being there. I know him very well, and but it's going to be interesting. I know we're kind of jumping all over the place, but SMU, it's going to be interesting to go into. They gave him a tough draw to go to Penn State. In the cold, up at their place. This whole setup is interesting. Boise is a very good team. I love their head coach.
Yep.
And I've faced Boise a couple times. But for them to get a bye, not being into one of the Power 4 conferences,
right,
is they don't play the same people week in, week out, and then they have a bye while these other teams play, and there's more chance for injuries.
Right.
For these other teams, they have to play a week longer, and these are not NFL players. They're not used to this regiment. They're not used to all of this.
Right.
The NFL, those guys are seasoned veterans, been around. They understand. They get it. I've coached in the NFL. I've coached in 3 NFC championship games. I've been to playoffs 3 times in the NFL. It's different.
Yeah.
And I know they're trying to figure it out in college, but I believe the only way to do it is to move these teams out of the NCAA, form their own league. And I don't like any of it anyway. I'm old school. So, the picture is just wrong. We can talk about the NIL. They need to get a cap on that thing. It's just unfair to a team like Kansas compared to a team like Oklahoma.
Alabama. Right.
Or Alabama. The monies are not the same. And it's just different. And it's just not fair across the board. You got to get a cap in there. And look at 6 head coaches in the American Conference got fired. Right. And Trent Dilford hung on by a thread.
Right.
Or you have 7 head coaches fired. And why is that? Because all these players that have any ability at all, like look at UAB, already lost their running back to Indiana.
Right.
And lost their quarterback to Texas A&M.
Right.
Are you serious? And all these people are going to leave. They're going to go to these other schools, and these schools like South Florida, they'll probably, why did they not play their quarterback all the way through the rest of the year? Probably because he got offered a ton of money by somebody, and his agent probably told him not to play.
Right.
That's just my guess. Because why else would he play?
Right.
I don't get it. Now, nobody knows, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see him all of a sudden go somewhere else making a lot of money. And you got to feel sorry for the head coach of South Florida, having to go through all those kind of things. All those coaches in that league. It's tough.
Yep. All right, let's talk about some you mentioned coaching changes. There's a lot of shuffling the last week or so. I'm going to give you 5 names and give me one that kind of jumps out to you. One, you mentioned Scott Frost back to UCF, which obviously he had success there. The big one, Bill Belichick to North Carolina. You got Rich Rod going back to West Virginia, a guy and played against, coached against when he was at West Virginia. Dan Mullen goes to UNLV to replace a guy Coach Odom, who goes to Purdue. Give me a thought or two about a couple of those names that change locations.
Well, Belichick's going to be – the jury's out on that one. Nobody knows what to think on that one because The college game is totally different than the NFL game. It just is. Recruiting is a big thing, but it's all about money. How many players can you buy?
Right.
And all of a sudden now Belichick is in there, and if he can get enough money and people rally around him in North Carolina, and they start paying players, and players are starting to think, well, shoot, I get with Belichick. He knows so many people in the NFL.
Right.
That's going to be a better chance getting the NFL, and that's what all these high-paid players want to do. They want to keep making money in college and the NFL. So there's a dynamic out there that's kind of interesting. I think it all depends on what kind of staff he can put together, which I think he'll be able to put together a very good staff.
Yep.
I think he'll run it just like an NFL organization. And it would not surprise me at all to see him win, because North Carolina has resources.
Yep.
It's a great place to be. We played North Carolina when I was a head football coach at South Florida, and we beat them, and we beat NC State, we beat those teams. But I think Belichick might do very well. But then if he didn't, it wouldn't surprise me either.
Right.
Odom going to Purdue. Purdue's a tough job. Yep. I like Barry a lot. Barry played at Missouri. I know Barry. I've texted him a number of times.
Yep.
But Purdue is Purdue. And they haven't won since way back. When I was at Kansas State, we played them in the Copper Bowl.
With Drew Brees and company.
Yeah, and they had a really good team. And but Purdue's a tough place to go, and the monies are not going to be equal in the Big Ten. That's the problem. I think Barry's a very good coach, but that's the problem. Rich Rod, I've talked to him. I texted him a number of times this year. Always, and I told him, I said, I always wanted to not like you, and almost like I didn't like you because I wanted to beat you. And we were fortunate to win some of those. And when he was at Arizona, I faced him at Arizona also, because he was in the Pac-12 when I was at Colorado and Oregon.
Yes.
And had some success against him. He beat us one time. But I have great respect for him. He is a hell of a coach.
And he's a good fit at West Virginia. He seems like a good fit there.
I think they'll rally behind him. I think he'll be very successful. Going to Morgantown, I've been there a number of times, having to bring South Florida there to play. We won one time there, and we lost one time there. In fact, the time we lost was Pat White's senior year. We had first and goal to win the game at the end, and we didn't get in.
Wow.
It was an unbelievable game. We beat them 3 out of 4.
Right.
But I think Rich will do very well. I'm happy for him going back there. He's a heck of a coach. I think they'll rally a lot of support around him, and I think he'll be successful, because West Virginia, again, the Big 12's without Texas and without Oklahoma, there's so much parity in that league, and going to West Virginia is tough. That is not a fun trip. And, of course, on the other side, West Virginia's got to travel. But I think Rich will do well. Who else did you mention?
I was going to mention, let me ask another guy that when we talked earlier in the regular season, we thought this guy was dead man walking, and he give him all the credit. Billy Napier at Florida. Give me a thought or two about Napier kind of salvaging what he did and how well they played down the stretch.
You got to give him a lot of credit. You're right. I'm really, really impressed with him. Nobody thought he was going to last. I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't think he was going to last. That schedule was so hard. I mean, it's like impossible. I don't know if there's one guy out there thought he would survive other than him.
Yep.
And yes, you got to give him so much credit for just keeping it going and stay focused and just keep doing what you can control and not worrying about all the people like me or anybody else.
Well, the kids seem like they bought in too. That's the other part. The effort level was tremendous out of that Gator team.
Well, the quarterback change was that was it. Yep. And they had a 5-star quarterback that rallied the troops, I think, and it gave them hope, because they had talent there anyway. And I think that was a real key. And fortunately, he had that. If he didn't have that, then I don't think he'd be where he is right now. But you got to give him a lot of credit. Florida State, I don't understand how they did what they did. I mean, you're Florida State, for goodness sakes. I don't know how you only win one game or whatever they won. And then Miami is typical Miami. I mean, last year they take a
The kneel down issue with the
oh
block
God.
and
And then this year, Virginia Tech, how can you be a coach on Virginia Tech and not believe you won that game? How do they turn that call in the end zone
right,
when nobody really knows? And
right.
they called it a touchdown. How in the Cal game, same thing. You tell me that wasn't when that went helmet to helmet
And
and they don't call it.
and Miami had every break in the world, and then you're at Syracuse, 4 minutes to go in the game, fourth and goal at the 7, and you kick a field goal down 7 points. You haven't
That to
stopped them
me,
for 3.5 quarters.
yeah, I'm just being honest. Why? You know, if you don't make it on that 4th and 10, and you don't score, and you got probably the best quarterback in America, that guy's unbelievable, and you don't score, they got the ball now at the 10. That's a lot different than having the ball
Right.
at the 40 or 50.
You give them 25 yards of field position after you kick the field goal by the kickoff. You give them the ball to basically the 25-yard line.
And then they would have stopped them. I know Lance Kidry would have
Yes.
rallied the defense. They would have stopped them, and Miami would have had another shot. And I think that quarterback would have got him in.
Yep.
I mean,
It's
2 shots.
Unbelievable.
Did that? I don't get it. But that's and people will blast me because they say, "Oh, it's easy for me to sit here and make those decisions when I'm really comfortable and not on the sideline." No, it isn't. I've been there. I've been in those sidelines. I've been in those games. Those are not hard decisions,
right?
To me. Now there are some others that are hard decisions, but I don't think those are.
Awareness of the game. You haven't stopped them for 3 quarters.
Well, for me, I always had 2 or 3 guys on the headsets that I've really leaned on because sometimes those decisions are very difficult.
They are. You're right.
And you're going to have to make them, but I'll always talk it through with somebody.
That's right.
That I really leaned on and then I had to make the decision, but I don't know. I didn't think that was a hard decision for me, but
with that with that guy at quarterback, you have to give him the ball and a chance to tie the game, I think.
Yeah. Well, we'll move on. They're
yep.
They did a good job getting that quarterback.
Yes.
The story was he was supposed to go to Florida State, is what I gathered.
Right.
And then he was going to go in the NFL, and Florida State takes DJ Umale, right. And then Cam Ward comes out, and they already paid Umale so much money they couldn't take Cam also. And then Miami did a good job. You got to give them credit.
They did.
Their staff did a good job of bringing in probably the best quarterback you could ever dream of having.
But they should be in the playoff. They should be in the playoff based on not because of what the committee did, but they should have won the games they needed to win to get in the playoff. It was set up for them.
Well, you can't lose the last 2 out of 3.
Yeah,
that's all there is to it. You can't.
Yep.
You can't do that and expect to get in, and they know that.
All right, let's get to the games this week. We got 4 games. We got 1 Friday night and 3 Saturday. I think an element of this weekend that's going to be a huge factor in some of these games is the weather, Coach. You know this. Columbus, Happy Valley, South Bend. It is going to be cold. The weather, it could be nasty, rainy, snowy. We don't know, but it's going to be cold. So a team like SMU, not used to this stuff. We saw they were affected a little bit against Clemson. How do you think the weather is going to play into this first round of games this weekend? Potentially.
Well, with the SMU game, I don't know if the weather will have a factor or not. Of course, you're at home. The key is just the attitude of your players as you go out, and the coaching staff. Coaching staff's got to do a good job going out there, embracing the weather, saying this is awesome, and really sell that in their body language and how they go about things and everything. The players, these are all good teams. But I think the problem with SMU is going to be line of scrimmage.
Okay.
I just think Penn State's got a lot better line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and I think that's why they'll win. SMU's got a very good team, and they've got some really good athletes. Boy, receiver, running back, quarterback, all of it. But I just think the line of scrimmage is going to take over in that game.
Yep.
Who's Ohio? I don't even know some of the games. And Ohio State.
We'll go through them here. Yeah, I'm gonna go through them in a second for you. I'm gonna go talk about in prep time this week. The teams have had probably are coming up on 2 weeks, but another element of these last 2 weeks, final exams. How does that play into preparation? You got kids having to take finals. How much of that really is that a factor? Not really. How does that play into preparation these last 8 or 9 days?
I'm not sure about that one because most of these universities they're gonna find a way to do that.
You got a smirk on your face, coach.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, some guys like Justin Herbert, who's playing for the Chargers, who was with us at Oregon. We got ready for bowl games. He was a pre-med major, so those guys can do it all anyway. I just don't know how much of a factor that
Okay.
will
Okay.
be. It could be. I'm not. I mean, they're there getting education, right? That's why this whole world is different than when I went to school. Um, it just is the distractions. I think most of these people have been through a lot of big games already, and I think that they'll find a way to get pretty focused.
Okay.
Now, kicking game, I think will be a huge deal. It always is when you get to this time of year.
Yes.
It's different than the bowl games because the bowl games teams are not even most of the really good players don't even play in bowl games anymore.
Right.
This is a way that they will keep some of these top players playing.
Oh, sure.
With the bowl games, even last year, even when I was interim head coach at SMU, we were supposed to play Virginia, and they canceled the game because of COVID. But it was more coaching change, and
Right.
other players didn't want to play. And for us at SMU, all our receivers weren't playing either; they were getting ready for the NFL.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's all interesting. It really is. I don't know.
All right. Listen to the Powers on Sports podcast with Coach Jim Leavitt, previewing all the college football games, playoff games starting Friday night. Let's get to Friday night, Coach, in South Bend. If you don't think the committee put this matchup together,
Oh,
Indiana
sure they
Notre
did.
Dame with the with all the history of the basketball side of things in the state, and Indiana's never been here before. Give me a thought or two. Let's break this game down a little bit. You got Kirk Cignetti. What a job he's done in year one. Come from James Madison, bringing his guys. That attitude that he has, Coach Cignetti, very confident coach. You got Marcus Freeman. Year two just got an extension a couple days yesterday announced, I think, over the weekend that he's committed to being there and he wants to be there. That Notre Dame running attack, to me, line of scrimmage is a big thing here with Notre Dame. Their defense and that running attack versus the wide open game of Indiana. Just get cold weather, going to be up in South Bend. In-state rivalry, which they never play each other, which is another part of this equation. Just give me a breakdown of this game from what you see.
To me, this is the biggest toss-up game there is. I like Indiana a lot. They lost one game. The way they came back and beat Purdue. Of course, Purdue was done at that point. But I want to tell you now, I'm impressed with Indiana. I think they've done a remarkable job. The way Notre Dame's come back after that Northern Illinois loss
Right.
has been really. Both teams have got momentum, even though Indiana got beat by Ohio State like they did. I think this could be one hell of a game. And I really don't know how to pick a winner on this one. I really don't. Do you give the edge to Notre Dame because they're home? They're not very far from Indiana.
Right.
They've all been in cold weather. They're all working out on the indoor anyway right now.
Right.
I don't know, boy. I really don't.
That defense of Notre Dame, that secondary of Notre Dame's pretty good as far as covering those Indiana receivers. They like to throw the ball a lot. And that kid Rourke, that quarterback for Indiana, he's going to be throwing it, right?
Yeah, but you know what? I know you might talk about bad weather, but like we talked about Drew Brees back into Purdue when they won 10, 11 games. They played in a lot of cold weather, and all they did was throw the ball out of empty.
Is the advantage to the offense when the weather's back because they know where they're going from
I think it
you're a
depends
defensive guy?
Depends on the wind.
Okay.
Because your footing as a DB in that cold weather is bad, and you got to respond and react to the receiver, and that's why sometimes when it gets a little bit of rain, it's much better for the offense because those receivers know where they're going. Now, when it's a downpour, it's hard, but I think the wind is going to be a bigger factor than how cold, unless it's like below zero.
Right.
If it's like 30 degrees, 35,
a little snow or something.
Yeah, it's not as big of a deal. I mean, I've been in it all, believe me, and I've been in below zero in a playoff game at Green Bay with the 49ers. And I've also been at Mankato State when I was at I don't know where I was at, Dubuque or Morningside. I think it was Dubuque. We were playing up there in a game. The wind was bad. I mean, I've been in some bad places, St. Cloud, Minnesota. When I was small college coaching.
As a
I'm,
defensive coach, when the weather's bad, whether it's wind, rain, do you get more aggressive as far as blitzing, or do you play maybe a little more passively saying, I don't think a team can put an 8, 10, 12 play drive together because of the weather?
if it's really, really bad, I try to keep them in front of us.
Yeah.
Try to. That doesn't mean I'm not going to bring the heat once in a while, but probably not as much. I'm going to want them to work the ball down the field, and let them make a mistake because they could be on the 7 yard line going in and still be very tough to get in if the weather's really bad. You don't want to give anything cheap. Don't want to give anything over top. You want to make them uh, make a lot of plays, sustain a drive.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. So you think this is a dead toss up game?
I
Correct.
do. I don't know what they have out there. I don't know what the point spread is for it, but
I think Notre Dame's like a touchdown favorite. Probably home
yeah,
field,
probably because it's home field,
reputation. Yep.
you know.
Yep.
But
Okay.
I think it's going to be a hell of a game. I really
Yep.
do. I'll be
Yep.
surprised if it's not.
All right, let's go up to Happy Valley. Penn State, SMU. Sounds like you think Penn State has an advantage with the trenches. Obviously, you saw Penn State go pretty much toe to toe with Oregon a couple weeks ago in the Big Ten title game. You got the James Franklin, can he win a big game scenario? You got the little guy Rhett Lashley in SMU, kind of the little team that could. You mentioned their skill players at SMU, really good skill players. That kid Jennings at quarterback is pretty dynamic. Give me a breakdown here of SMU. What can SMU do to put Penn State on edge and make this a football game?
Well, I think SMU's got to create some balance, no doubt. I think they're going to have to be able to run the ball a little bit on Penn State, and I don't know if they'll be able to do that. I think Penn State will win by 14, but
Okay.
that's just my gut. I just I just think the line of scrimmage. I think Penn State's got a better line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Now, it doesn't mean that SMU doesn't. They got some pretty good players.
Yep.
But I think that offensive line, I think Penn State's defensive line is just going to be too good going against the O line at SMU. But I just think that's going to be the case. I think it should be a.
Okay.
I think that they'll have more balance. Penn State will run the ball better, and I think that'll be the key.
Okay. All right. Let's go to Saturday. Let's go to Saturday afternoon, Austin, Texas. Texas, Clemson. Obviously, Clemson kind of gets in the back door here with winning the ACC. Most people think Clemson's okay, not great. Decent players on both sides of the ball, not great. Then you have Texas lose two to Georgia. They Ewers has flashes of brilliance, and then other times he plays pretty mediocre. Lines of scrimmage. Again, Texas is really stout on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Do we see Arch Manning in this game at all in a package or two? Give me a thought here. Clemson going to Austin.
No, I think Texas will win because of the line of scrimmage. And Clemson's a good football team. They're starting to play a little bit better this time of year. Again, like I'm saying, these are all good, really good teams, and they're all used to winning. The Clemson's used to winning, and they're going to go into a lot of confidence too. But I just think Texas is going to have the edge. Especially being home again. I think that's going to be just a little bit of edge for Texas. I don't know if they'll. I think they'll probably play both quarterbacks. Yeah, I really do. I think that they'll have a package for them, and I think Manning will get in there, and but I just, boy, you got two really good teams, but I think Texas has the edge on.
Coaching wise, Sark and Dabo. Is there an edge there?
I think Sark's I think Sark's gonna. I think he'll do really well, But obviously, offensively, he didn't do a lot against Georgia in a few of those games. But Dabo's got a good staff too, good coaches, But I give the edge I give the edge to Texas. I just do.
All right, last game of the night, Saturday night, prime time up in Columbus. To me, this is a matchup, an 8-9 matchup. Hard to believe these two teams are 8 and 9 in the seedings. You got Tennessee, you got Ohio State. The winner potentially plays Oregon, which is what a rough road for Oregon to potentially have to beat Ohio State or Tennessee in the quarterfinal, basically. I mean, for me, coach, I think either one of these teams could win the national championship. Tennessee, Ohio State. Obviously, we know all the talent at Ohio State, all the pressure on Ryan Day after the Michigan debacle here a couple weeks ago, all the NIL money that's invested, the $20 million into the Ohio State team. You got 10. What would you like to do with $20 million, coach? Could you buy some good players for $20 million?
I would hope so. And Ohio State has. They got good players. I mean, so does Tennessee. Tennessee's defense played so great early in the year.
Yep.
They had a few mistakes here and there, but especially team coordinator
Got a
Mike
freshman
Eckler.
quarterback at Tennessee, Nico, the freshman quarterback versus Will Howard, a Kansas State guy who I know you probably have some thoughts on. But yeah, I mean, just to me, I think this is a game. Both teams got good defenses. You mentioned the Tennessee defense, the Tennessee running attack. How do you think this game plays out?
It's just a close one, like Indiana Notre Dame. I think that Ohio State wins, home field advantage. Wins by a field goal. I think it's going to be close. This one, though, anything could happen in this one. I think it just depends on Tennessee, how they come into the game and, how they do offensively. It wouldn't surprise me to see Tennessee win this game either. Because Ohio State's, losing to Michigan, that was a tough loss, and, Ohio State, they came in like with all that money and everybody thought they were just going to roll on everybody. And they didn't. They lost to Oregon, but that game was out in Oregon, so close.
Yes.
And Michigan was the one that, everybody will say, well, that's just a Michigan Ohio State rival, and that's true. But I give the edge to Ohio State. I still think the line of scrimmage will be a little bit better Ohio State. But boy, I don't know because I don't know their injury situation. Ohio State, I think, has lost
some O-line. Some O-line.
Alignment. Yeah, their center. That I'd have to look into a little bit more. That line of scrimmage. I think it'll be the key in this game, and I think both have good line of scrimmages on both sides. That's why, I just give the edge to Ohio State because of home field. That's it.
Two questions, two more, and I'll get you out of here. Schematically, these last 10, 12 days, coaching-wise, how much do you guys change of what you've done? How much do you try to throw in a wrinkle or two? How much do you when you're 4, 5, 6 weeks into the year, do you project, okay, I'm pretty sure we're going to make the playoffs. I'm going to hold back a little blitz scheme or something for a moment like this? Or do you just figure out what we're really good at and really hone in on the things we're really good at?
Well, you hone in on what's really good at, for 80% of it. But yes, I would definitely put a pressure package in that they have not seen. I know defensively I would. And if I'm on offense, I'd do the same. I would have something, a wrinkle, a trick play, something that has not been shown through the year. And not that I use it, but I'm going to have it ready. And I might have been practicing that all year long. And I might get to a point where now I feel more confident in it. Sometimes, like even with a pressure package, you got things in your portfolio that you just haven't used, but you've practiced with the players through the year.
You saw a great fake punt in the Army-Navy game over the weekend. A play like that on a fake punt situation, something like that, right?
Yes, I definitely would have something in all three phases. Something. I'm not saying I'm going to use it, but I'm going to have it ready.
And are you more in a situation like this, especially when you're the underdog, the SMUs, the Clemsons of the world, maybe even the Indianas? Are you more aggressive on fourth down? Are you more of that kind of stuff as far as taking a little more risk as far as on fourth down, or do you just do what you've been doing all year? You've been successful. You've had a great year. How do you handle that?
It depends how the game is being played. It depends on what's happening during the game. That decision will be made as the game plays out. I don't think any of these schools feel like they're an underdog. I think they've gotten to where they are right now because they feel like they can win the national championship. So I think all of them are going to go in with confidence. And I don't think you certainly don't want to put your team in a disadvantage by doing something, I think, too early. But I'd certainly have things ready. But again, it depends on the game's being played and what's going on during the game.
There you go. Last one. Who's the favorite for you? Give me two teams of all the 12. I don't care who it is. Who's the best two teams in your mind going into this thing?
Well, Oregon's going to be one of them because I coached at Oregon for a couple of years. I know their whole deal, and they've got a really good quarterback that can move, that makes good decisions. I like the quarterback. I liked him at Oklahoma when he was there. I think that's, uh, you got to like them.
They
Uh,
could, just so you know, Coach, they could potentially have to play Tennessee or Ohio State in the
all right,
quarterfinals, Texas in the semifinals as the
I
five
know.
seed, and then obviously win a national champ. That is a rough road to hoe if you're
Yeah, I
Oregon as the
agree.
one seed.
And that could disrupt them. There's no question about it. But I'd certainly go for the quarterbacks, and the two best quarterbacks that are not two of the better quarterbacks in the country are not even in the playoffs. Miami and Alabama.
Right.
Those two guys are two of the most dynamic quarterbacks in America, and they're not even in
I know, right?
the playoffs. Both of them. That to me is one of the craziest things there is because if either one of those teams were in, I'd lean to one of those two teams win the national championship
Uh-huh.
because if their quarterback is hot, because those guys will probably be the first two guys picked in the draft. They're
Can
not even in the playoffs.
Ashton Genty put Boise on his shoulders, or do they got to have a passing attack to be able to win a couple games?
That's got to be a full team effort. It really does. I really believe that.
He's a
I
hell of
don't
a
think
running back. He's a hell of a back, but
I know, but I don't. They haven't played the people. We'll see.
they
I
took
do
Oregon to
agree.
the limit. They took Oregon to the limit early.
Right early in the year, I agree. Listen, I like Boise. I think they're a hell of a team. And I think getting that bye is going to be really big for them. And I think they're as far as a team goes, they're as much of a team that relies on each other and is accountable to each other as anybody in the whole picture. I really do. Georgia, would be the other team you got to think about because they're so good, but their quarterbacks
Quarterback, yeah.
struggled.
And
That's
he's
the
hurt. And
only
he's
thing.
hurt.
You know, that's the only thing about them. And then they only got three teams in the SEC that are in. You got to give Georgia a little bit of an edge because they've been there, and I got to believe Georgia would be the other team other than Oregon.
All right. Well, Coach Leavitt, awesome job, man. Great analysis, great breakdown. You got so much insight and experiences with all these different programs and how these coaches think. So it's awesome to get you on. Have a happy holiday. Enjoy your Christmas shopping. Enjoy the girls. I know your daughters are doing great and getting ready to get out of school here in a couple days for the break. Enjoy your holiday, okay?
All right, thank you, appreciate it.